In this tutorial, we create a PDF document using the PDF endpoint with the HTML input type. We use a string containing an HTML fragment, an HTML string that includes a relative base path, and an HTML document. First, we call the PDF endpoint directly using curl. We then call it using the 4 different client libraries. First C#, then Java, then Node.js, then PHP, and then Go. The DynamicPDF CloudAPI has 6 endpoints for working with PDFs. All 6 endpoints take a post request. DLEX layout, there's the image info endpoint, the PDF info, PDF text, PDF XMP, and then the PDF endpoint. An instructions.json document consists of 1 or more input types. Those input types include HTML, image, page, PDF, and DLEX. Of course, in this tutorial, we're going to use the HTML input. The way it works is the PDF endpoint uses an instruction.json document to specify processing instructions. You can access the written version of this tutorial by going to Tutorials, Cloud API, Convert HTML to PDF. You can access the source code for this tutorial from GitHub. And you can see we have complete source for Java, C#, Node.js, Go, and PHP. Let's log into DynamicPDF CloudAPI. So enter your email address, your password, and log in. After logging in, it takes us to the Environment Manager. Go to Manage Resources, and we're going to add this tutorial to our sample projects. Manage Resources, Samples, highlight Samples, add Samples, check the checkbox for Convert HTML to PDF, and that adds the samples. Open the folder. Let's download both of these. So right-click on instructions.json, click Download, and do the same for products.html, download it, and move both these files to C:/temp/HTML to PDF. Let's begin by using curl. So go to temp HTML to PDF and open the instructions.json. And what we have is a JSON document. You'll see it lists the inputs. We have 3 inputs, all of which are type HTML. In the first one, we just have an HTML string. In the second one, we have an HTML string, but we also have a base path. So that logo.png, although it's just a relative path in our HTML document, the base path is coming from dynamicpdf.com. And let's enter the curl command. Let's see, curl-x post, because it's going to be a post command, https api.dynamicpdf.com, version 1.0, PDF, -h, authorization, :bearer. Let's go get the authorization key. Go to the Environment Manager, click on the Apps and API keys, and copy the API key. Close. Now let's return to Notepad, paste in the API key. Now let's add the resource. So resource, temp, HTML to PDF, products.html. Now let's add the instructions JSON. So instructions equal C temp HTML to PDF instructions.json. And let's go ahead and output it to pdf-output.pdf. Let's copy it, paste it into the command prompt, hit return, wait for it to run, and hopefully it should process. Okay, it's finished. Let's go to Windows Explorer. And there it is, pdf-output.pdf. Open it, and there's the PDF document. Now let's use the C# API using Visual Studio. You can get the example project from DynamicPDF API.net-client-examples. And if you haven't gotten that project already, go ahead and download it now and set it up to run in Visual Studio. Open Visual Studio. We're going to create a new project. Select Console Application. Name the project HTML to PDF. Now let's add the NuGet package for DynamicPDF OpenAPI. Manage NuGet packages. And DynamicPDF.API. Select it, install. Okay, let's close it and go back to the program.cs. Type in using DynamicPDF.API. Now let's create a run method. Public static void run. String API key, string save path, string resource path. Replace the console.write line. Add the API key. So let's go to the CloudAPI Environment Manager and select Apps and API Keys. Click Copy to get the API key and then close. Return to Visual Studio. Paste the API key. Now let's add the save path, which is C temp HTML to PDF, HTML C# output.pdf. So that's going to be the output file path. Now let's add the resource path, which is what? HTML to PDF products.html. And let's go ahead and put in the program.run API key, save path, resource path. Oh, we have to fix API key. Okay, now let's add the logic to the run method. PDF equals new PDF, PDF API key, pdf.addHTML, and for this first, we're just going to add a fragment. So HTML, an example HTML fragment. Now let's add another add HTML, and this time we're going to add a base path. HTML paragraph, HTML with base path. Image source. So what we're going to do is just add an image. And this image, we have a base path here for the source, and it's going to come from the DynamicPDF website. So image HTML, and now let's add in the base path, which is https www.dynamicpdf.com. Now the third way we're going to do it is by adding HTML, but we're going to add that products.html file. HTML resource equals new HTML resource, system.io.file read all text, And let's enter the path to products.html. Now I add the HTML resource to the PDF using the add.html method. Now let's create a PDF response and call the pdf.process. Use system.io to write the response's content to a file. And let's go ahead and run it. Wait for it to run. And now let's go to it in Windows Explorer. And there it is. HTML C# output.pdf. Let's open it. And there's our HTML document. Now let's use the Java client library. You can get the Java client examples from DynamicPDF API Java client examples on GitHub. If you haven't already got it, go ahead and get it now. Open Eclipse. So let's go to examples and let's create a new class named HTML2PDF.java. Be sure to add the main method to it. And there's the class. Okay, let's enter in the key. And then the save path, which we'll name HTML2PDF output java.pdf. Now the resource path, which is the path to products.html. And now let's add the run method. So run string key, string save path, string resource path. So HTML to PDF.run, key, save path, resource path. We'll go get the key in just a minute. Okay, let's implement the run method. So PDF equals new PDF. Go ahead and import it. Okay, let's add a try catch method. Let's see, pdf.setAPI key. Then let's add the HTML, which is an HTML fragment. In this one, we need to set the page size and the orientation and margins. There is no base path, so we'll set the page size to letter and the page orientation to portrait. And we'll add a margin of 1. Okay, let's fix letter. Okay, now let's add the second HTML string. But this one includes a base path. So let's see, image source and the relative path to the logo.png. Let's add the base path, which is the DynamicPDF website. Now we add page size letter, page orientation portrait, and margin of 1. Okay, now let's get the resource, the HTML resource, because remember in this third example, we're going to get products.html from our local directory. Let's set the page size, the page orientation, and the margin. Now let's create a PDF response and call process. And now let's use file utils from the Apache to save the file by getting the content from the response. Okay, what do we need to do now? Oh, so we have the save path, the resource path. We need to get the API key. Let's go to DynamicPDF CloudAPI, the environment manager, and then apps and API keys, copy, close, and now let's paste the API key. And there we go. Let's go ahead and run it. After running it, go to the HTML to PDF folder, and there it is, HTML to PDF output java.pdf. Open it, and there's the PDF. Now let's use the Node.js client library. You can get the Node.js example from GitHub, and it's DynamicPDF-API Node.js-client-examples. I like to use Visual Studio Code for Node.js development. Create a new file named html to pdf.js. Create a new HTML to PDF class. So export class HTML to PDF. Add the run method. So static async run. Add the base path. Let's see, C:/temp/HTML to PDF. Add the API key. Now let's go to the apps and API keys and get the API key. Copy, close, paste the API key. Now let's create a new PDF instance. So var PDF equals new PDF. Set the base path. Add the API key. Call the add HTML method and add the HTML fragment. open HTML tag, an example HTML fragment, close HTML tag. Now let's add the add HTML, only we're going to add the base path. So add HTML, open HTML, open paragraph tag, HTML with base path, close paragraph, image, now the image tag, and the source is a relative path to the DynamicPDF logo. Let's close the image and close HTML. Now let's add the base path, which is https www.dynamicpdf.com. Now set the page size to letter, the orientation to portrait, and a margin of 1. Let's add the resource path, which is base path plus products.html. So that's the products HTML page. Add HTML, new HTML resource, which in the constructor of the HTML resource, we pass the resource path. So we're going to set the base path as null, page size.letter, orientation portrait, and a margin of 1. Now let's call the process method pdf.process. If it's successful, we're going to write it to a file, which is our save path. Oh, let's go up there and create our save path. C:/temp/HTML to PDF /HTML output node. Now let's call the process method. And now let's write that file. And now to write that file, we get the byte array using the content from the response. So be sure to close the output stream. Go up to the top and add the import statements. So we have import fs from fs. And we have import PDF, page size, orientation, HTML resource. Of course, from at DynamicPDF /API. Down at the bottom, type await HTML to PDF.run. So that's how we're going to invoke the run method. And let's execute it. So let's type node HTML to PDF.js. Wait for it to run. Now let's open it in the File Explorer. And there's the PDF. Now let's use the PHP client library. You can get the PHP project from DynamicPDF API /PHP client examples. So if you haven't already downloaded that project and set it up, go ahead and do so now. I like to use Visual Studio Code for PHP development, so go ahead and open Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to assume you already have the project loaded from GitHub. Let's create a new class, name it HTML to PDF.php. And let's see, class HTML to PDF. Let's go ahead and add the call to run it. Now let's add the base path. Let's add the resource. Let's add the API key. We need to go get the API key. Let's get it from the environment manager apps and API keys. Paste it. Now let's create the run method. And let's see, PDF equals new PDF. Let's set the API key. Let's call add HTML and add the HTML fragment. Let's call add HTML again. And this time we're adding the base path. And the image logo PNG, that's a relative image, or that's a relative path. and then the base path to DynamicPDF. Okay, so let's create the new HTML resource, and we're going to load in products to the HTML. So add HTML, add the HTML resource. And now let's get the response by calling the process method. And let's output the contents to the base path. And let's name the file HTML PDF output pht.pdf. Then PDF response content. We need to add the use statements. So let's go up to the top and PHP. Use DynamicPDF API HTML resource and PDF. And we need to require dir. And there we go, vendor autoload PHP. Okay, let's go ahead and run it. So PHP HTML to PDF.php. Go to Windows Explorer. HTML PDF output php.pdf. Open it, and there's the PDF file. Now let's use the Go client library. You can get the Go client examples from DynamicPDF API /go-client examples. If you haven't already gotten the project, go ahead and get it now. I like to use Visual Studio Code, so open Visual Studio Code. Okay, so let's create a new file, HTML to PDF.go. Let's put it in package main. Let's add our import statement. We're going to use FMT OS, and let's add GitHub now, because we're going to use endpoint and input. Let's create a new main method. And let's see, PDF example endpoint.newPDF to create our PDF. Now let's add the base URL. Now let's go get the API key. Now let's get the first input, which will be new HTML input with string. Now let's type our string fragment. And input 2, input.newHTML input with string. Let's enter our fragment. But this time we're using the base path. We're specifying the relative path to the logo. And now we're going to get the base path, which is DynamicPDF. Okay, now let's add the inputs to the PDF. Now let's go ahead and call the process method to get the response. And if it's successful, then we're going to write the response content to a file, which we're going to name HTML output go.pdf. res content bytes os.mode type. If it's not successful, we're going to go ahead and just print the error JSON. Now let's run it. Go run HTML to PDF.go. Wait for it to run. Now let's go to Windows Explorer, and there it is. HTML output go.pdf. Open it, and there's the PDF. In this tutorial, we added an HTML string where the image is located on the DynamicPDF website, and so it specifies a base path, and then an HTML document from a file. The three HTML documents were converted into PDFs and merged into one combined PDF. I'm James, Developer Evangelist at DynamicPDF, reminding you, when you think PDF, think DynamicPDF. See you next time.